All right, major issues happening over at Disneyland as Disneyland security is mulling a historic strike. Is Disneyland about to get a lot less secure? Well, let's talk about it today on That Park Place. Vash, for the first time ever, it says here, this is from Mice Chat, and this is by Dave Koning. It says, for the first time ever, Disneyland security may be on the verge of going on strike. Union members overwhelmingly voted down a second contract proposal on May 3rd, thereby authorizing a strike. Negotiations are set to resume on May 7th, with some members claiming they are ready to take the fight to the mat. Despite a fair bit of saber rattling over the years, Disneyland security has never gone on strike before. In fact, it's been rare for any of the park's divisions to picket during the resort's 70-plus years. The only large-scale action was a 22-day strike in 1984 that involved 5 divisions and nearly 2,000 strikers, which permanently tore apart the fabric of the cast member family. Today's security department has more than 1,600 union members. Out of Disney's backup plan, they're taking the threat seriously, obviously. The company has already begun training senior management to perform security-specific duties, such as working the access gate, drive-in gate, and pedestrian gate. Managers from different lines of business will also be forced to handle whatever calls affect their division. Presumably altercations on attractions would fall under ride ops, shoplifting under merchandise, etc. Vash, that sounds like a disaster.
It absolutely is, yes.
If the trained security personnel are all on strike and you have like managers from other places like running security and checking bags, not knowing what to look for, merchandising staff are supposed to handle shoplifting. Come on, man.
This is really, really bad. I mean, look, okay, my feelings on this are multifold right here, because maybe you saw my post, Marvin, maybe you did not, but I mean, I'm of the opinion that Disney security should probably be done away with, at least Disneyland security, because I just think those, yes, because I don't think their teams are, I mean, look, there have been a number of high-profile incidents, Marvin, that have gotten Disney into some really troubled waters. Like, for example, like the Oblivion incident, right, with the swatting incident. In that way, you had a massive police presence, covering all entrances and exits from all over the Disneyland Resort. You had choppers overhead. You had all this stuff actually going on, and then you have the first person who confronted Oblivion in that case, which we covered on VashSky Parkcast extensively. We actually watched the entire live stream and the back and forth there. It was like, Marvin, she hadn't even heard of the term swatting before, and it's like, oh, how are you at all going to be able to do your job effectively when you don't actually know the new terms for like live streaming and social behavior and all that kind of stuff? You have to be on board with that, because that's part of your job. It's part of your resume. And like the Toontown incident, for example, the slow response times and everything associated with that. And there have been a number of other instances which Disney security, or Disneyland security that is, haven't necessarily met the call. And people have complained for years, Marvin, on the security issues related to checking in. Go ahead.
Since we do, break these live streams up into individual videos, explain what you mean by the Toontown thing, even though we talked about it, in between segments.
Yes, the Toontown Brawl, right, where you had a gentleman actually lay waste practically to his entire family in this very high-profile viral incident that took place. I believe it was 2019, 2018, 2017, around that time period. I can't quite remember exactly the date, but it's known as the Toontown Brawl. It was this very viral moment that, you had social media sharing videos at the time, and they were extremely shocking, and there was such a delay in the security presence right there that really, it got really, really out of hand. It could have involved other guests. Fortunately, I don't believe it did. But the one load security guard who was actually there couldn't actually intervene until backup actually arrived, which was 3, 4, 5 minutes later. And by that point, the damage had already been done. Mm-hmm. So, it's just a multitude of those different things.
This guy had assaulted the Toontown Brawl. He assaulted at least 2 women in his family, if not 3. An old lady was knocked out of her wheelchair. It was rough, man. And nobody was doing anything.
No, because
I think guests actually tried to pull the guy off.
Yeah, maybe. I think yes. I think you're right about that. Actually, I think there were a number of men who were actually getting involved there. This was a big gentleman right there, and you needed an enhanced security presence in this part of the park. And unfortunately, it was delayed. There was just nobody there for a good amount of time, and nobody to really intervene meaningfully in that incident. Go ahead.
So you think that Disneyland security should just be done away with? How do we secure the park then at that point?
I think you should hire a new team. I mean, I just don't think
so it's not that you think there should be like some kind of structural change. You just think that the team that's there is not capable of doing the job and it needs to be replaced.
And there are at least rumors I've heard from several sources that this is actually absolutely the case, but there have been rumors going for a long time that Disneyland security has been very apprehensive about new technologies, right? Mm-hmm. So, like for Walt Disney World, right? You guys have the basically walk-through scanners, right?
Oh, do they not have those at Disneyland?
No, absolutely not. No, we have old school metal detectors, and every single bag is checked by hand.
Oh,
and
that's
to me, I think you leave guests vulnerable when you do that. There have been a number of instances, even recently, of people bringing up big, pocket knives and so forth, and all kinds of stuff within park boundaries. There's stuff that's snuck in regularly in the parks, unfortunately, because they don't want to embrace technology, because the unions have said, at least privately, that will amount to a workforce reduction. Even Universal Studios Hollywood has, bag checks like you would actually encounter via TSA and so forth, which they're extremely thorough in checking all those things. Disneyland security anyway, has not embraced that. And the one time they tried, Marvin, the one test they did, I believe in 2020, actually, there's an Orange County Register article going in on that. It only was conducted for a few weeks, and back in, Disneyland security was back on. And unfortunately, they have had to reduce the number of ingress and egress points because, these Disneyland security labor union has had mandates and so forth. I mean, it's just had a number of problems. And like I said, people have complained about it for years because the efficiency, Marvin, of actually getting into this park is so dreadful. It is the worst entrance experience of any park, a Disney park that is, around the world. Go to Tokyo, go to Paris, go to Walt Disney World, they're all better. And one of the reasons is because of Disneyland security, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. It's Walt Disney World security, I mean, walking in the park is the easiest thing in the world now because you just walk straight through and you only have to, if you beep, then you have to have your bag checked. But I mean, like, sure. So umbrellas, eyeglass cases, or any kind of large electronics like an iPad or a laptop, you just have to take it, or an umbrella. You have to take those out of your bag and you hold it out in front of you, like as straight as you can. Mm-hmm. And so that way it like, it goes off and it shows you like exactly where, it is, what the thing is that's hitting it. And if they see that it's that, then you go right through. I thought that was becoming standard, for Disney parks across the world. That is really insane that they're not using that in Disneyland.
No, yeah, they're not. And I know.
So does everyone go through the metal detector? Because at Walt Disney World, when they had the metal detectors, you had to be randomly selected for additional screening to go through the metal detector.
Yeah, it did start that way with the initial incorporation of metal detectors. Now they have everybody actually go through them, which is good. But I've still seen a number of people actually get through some dangerous objects, and that's the thing with security as it relates to Disneyland. You're most concerned about knives and so forth, and you have to be really on top of that. And unfortunately, I just don't. I think union leadership has let down their members. Unfortunately, this is not to call out individual security guards by any means. I just think you've been let down by management as it relates to both Disney and your union leadership. And unfortunately, there has to be, I think, a systemic change because this is just not acceptable.
So, is there security to get into downtown Disney?
Yes. Okay. They've increased the security bubble in order to incorporate those areas. And apparently they are going to have a new security facility as made with the construction of Disneyland Forward's parking structure, which is supposed to be extremely significant. Be interesting to see what that actually looks like. But, in preparation to that is going to be a new contract here. And I think this is why there's maybe pushback, because I don't think, especially for the services that's provided by these security guards, I just don't think Disney is willing to pay an arm and a leg for it.
So what do you think happens then if the Disneyland security team goes on strike and all of a sudden now you have retail managers and, you know, team leads and stuff like that trying to handle security at the gate, checking bags and whatnot, especially given that it's not the just simple walk right through system that they have at Walt Disney World. That's going to probably be a pretty large disaster for them, right?
Yeah, I would think so. I'd have to actually check California labor laws as to what they could even do in this instance. But I would imagine that they employ a private company in order to satisfy their needs on an ongoing basis. I mean, yeah, you would hope, right? But you're talking about what, 70,000 people per day on average, right? For these parks that have to pass through these security ingress and egress points right here. So. I mean, maybe you whittle it down to maybe like 3 or 4 major points in order to reduce headcount, but it's gonna be tough. And unfortunately, we are seeing a lot of efficiencies at the Disneyland Resort. They're just not spending as much money on these parks in order to maintain them and to provide their services that they did in the past. And on the VashSky Parkcast, we're going to have a whole segment all around the downgrades actually happening, specifically at Disneyland Resort, but park experience-wide.
Well, guys, that's coming up right after this show, so stay tuned because you'll be automatically directed over to VashSky Parkcast, right when we're done. So, all right, guys, well, that does it, for this story. It's up to you guys whether or not, you decide to go to Disneyland if this strike goes through and whether or not you think it's secure.
Thanks for watching That Park Plays News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.